Welcome back to our channel 217 Prince YT. Suho throws his cloak on little Suho's face, taking advantage. Suho rockets through the battlefield with deadly momentum, narrowly dodging falling debris and redirected attacks. His muscles twist and recoil midair, flipping with precision. The rage in his gaze burns brighter now, as if he's pushed past the line of desperation and into fierce resolve. Then he sees it. The passageway bathed in blue shadows, the one he hadn't reached before. His eyes lock on it, heart pounding. That's it. That's the only place left. Please, he wills himself forward, lungs burning as he dashes toward that final, untouched corridor. And there it is, at the end of the passage, standing proud, glowing with a subtle, ethereal shimmer. A door. Suho halts, breath ragged, and his eyes widen. It's real. It's a door. But there's no time to process the discovery. A new realization crashes into him like a lightning strike. There's someone else. Another presence that had been hiding, watching, waiting. The other one, it's coming. The air trembles as footsteps echo down the hall. And Suho braces himself, knowing his path forward is no longer just about running. It's about surviving what comes next. A storm of force tears through the corridor. Shockwaves ripple in jagged arcs, a blur of motion. The very air seems to scream as the enemy attempts to stop him, a desperate final gambit to keep Suho from reaching the door. He sees it. Just ahead, the engraved double doors bathed in ominous blue. The enemies rush to intercept, but he pushes harder, lungs burning, body tearing apart with every step. I must get through that door quickly. The realization cuts through the chaos. If they're trying this hard to stop him, then that door must be the key. If their intention is really to stop me from coming near this door, his thoughts race faster than his feet. It'll all be over if the soul striker gets here. The hallway trembles as red slashes bite into other Suho's back. Shit. Eyes narrowed. He turns toward the door. He has no time to waste. The hallway behind erupts. An explosion of force signals the soul striker's arrival. He's already moving. Energy ignites around him. Power wraps his limbs like armor. And then, he vanishes, surging toward the door like a bolt of lightning. A final sprint through a narrowing window of survival. A flicker of movement. A roar behind him. The gate looms ahead, closer now, nearly within reach. His hand stretches forward, every muscle screaming. And then he's through. A gasp escapes him as he collapses to the floor on the other side, drenched in sweat and blood, breath coming in ragged bursts. He can't come in here, can he? The silence answers him. Finally, he stands before the sealed door, the chaos locked behind him. No footsteps, no pursuit. Finally, he's gotten away from them. However, this isn't over yet. Not entirely. The dark, swirling haze of uncertainty coils around Suho's mind like smoke rising from scorched memory. What matters now is who's waiting beyond. From the fragments he's seen, each echoing glimpse of battle and pain, there's a strong possibility the enemy is not unknown, but familiar. Deeply so. There's a chance that what lies ahead is a past version of himself. One shaped by a different time, a different pain. A mirror distorted not by glass, but by fate. He recalls the first half of the tutorial. A younger, less hardened version of himself wielding raw courage and desperation like sharpened blades. Or perhaps it's the Suho from even earlier, the one shaped by pure instinct and survival. But if it's not either of them, if this unknown isn't a shade of his own past, then the question sharpens like a knife. Who, in the world, could it be? From the shadows emerges a silhouette. His feet press against the stone floor, footsteps echoing, heart steady, eyes locked ahead. The air tightens. Then he sees him, cloaked in power, surrounded by a deathly aura, twin blades in hand. One crimson, one ice blue. The figure steps forward with slow, crushing finality. And standing across from Suho is himself. But not just any version. This one is far stronger, more complete, more terrifying. The confrontation has begun. In the dim silence of the chamber, Suho stands face to face with a version of himself, his past doppelganger, surrounded by an ominous glow. The air between them is dense with tension, as if time itself has folded to pit past against present. Suho draws a breath, steadying the chill that crawls down his spine. His eyes lock onto the twin, swords glimmering in the hands of his other self, a flicker of realization tightening his brow. This time, it's the version of him that once dual-wielded blades, the one hardened by battles yet unshaped by the truths he now knows. His gaze narrows, sweeping over the familiar weapons. One, a jagged crimson edge pulsating with power, the Fong of Rakan. The other, darker and more menacing, bears the unmistakable name, Vulcan's Horn. This wasn't just a mirror. It was a memory made manifest. He questions silently. Was this an illusion crafted by the anomaly that plagued the system? Was this double the result of the error? His thoughts are interrupted as a system window appears before his eyes, his breath stilling as he scans its contents. The stats begin to register, and what he sees draws a thin smile to his face. His fist clenches. Finally, a blur of motion explodes from Suho as he lunges forward, his figure streaking through the air like lightning. He clashed with explosive force, power ringing through the chamber like thunderclaps. At last, a worthy opponent. As the shockwave settles, his opponent stares across the battlefield, adrenaline flooding his veins. Suho can feel it. His own level, his stats, the sheer overwhelming pressure he now holds. The interface materializes before him. Status window. Name, Sung Suho. Level, 32. Class, None. Title, Wolf Slaughterer. Strength, 75. Agility, 41. Stamina, 41. Intelligence, 41, plus 10. Sense, 41, plus 5. Fatigue, 0. His lips curl into a smirk. Compared to this, the version standing across from him doesn't stand a chance. Suho's eyes narrowed, locking onto the figure before him. The difference was stark, especially in one key area. His strength stat. It wasn't even close. Data flickered to life in his vision. Level, 40. Strength, 128. Agility, 49. Sense, 54, plus 5. Intelligence, 49. Stamina, 41. Everything about this version of himself, this Sung Suho, was stronger, faster, sharper, and more terrifying. With a silent shift in aura, his opponent activated a cascade of skills. A shimmering brilliance surged over his body. Body enhancement. His attack and defense instantly amplified. Winds of the grassland. Mobility and speed sword. Titan's armor. His defenses surged even higher. Suho's pupils trembled. Body enhancement. Isn't that the same skill Amit used? He gritted his teeth. Why does he have so many buffs? The air split apart as light flashed. He moved. The dual blades carved through space itself, arcs of deadly brilliance tearing through the battleground. Storm Slash has been used. The title announcement rang through the air like a war drum, and the entire arena seemed to scream beneath the pressure of the attack. With a roar of wind and energy, he dove through the collapsing shockwave, blade in hand. He's even using Storm Slash, he thought, eyes sharp with fire. But Suho met it head-on. With a fierce cleave, the red blade ripped the ground apart. Sparks and blood scattered as steel met flesh, the battle escalating beyond even Suho's expectations. The shockwaves ripple through the battlefield. Then, in the chaos, a subtle grin traced his lips. He had been saving something for this exact moment. I'm glad I kept this. I was afraid my weapon would break. But before Suho could brace himself again, something surged into his mind. A different battlefield took shape within his thoughts. Unfamiliar terrain, twisted monsters, chaos. An enormous beast loomed in front of another version of himself. Not this moment, not this place. A buried memory? No, an intrusion. His grip tightened on his weapon. A cold realization settled in. Were these illusions? Or the echo of a mind not entirely his? His opponent lunged again, and Suho's instincts reacted faster than thought. Blades clashed mid-air, but his eyes were distant, focused on the sudden torrent of visions. Suho winced. Blood traced down his arm, the pain anchoring him to reality. But the vision persisted. Another memory that wasn't his. A fragment of a scene unfolded. A younger him, locking eyes with Hunter Miho. Her voice was urgent. Okay, let's go. Hurry up. And as if responding to that growing dissonance, the dual-wielding version of himself landed, eyes glowing with a dark command. The word, cold, resolute, left his lips. Arise. The world twisted. A vortex of shadows burst from the shattered ground as blue-tinged soldiers clawed their way into the light. Summons. The battlefield was now teeming with movement, steel clashing, spectral wings slicing the air. Above the chaos, Suho soared, his form cleaving through summoned enemies in midair. But the real threat waited below, awaiting his descent with swords raised. Suho's blade clashed violently with the armored knights, sparks and shockwaves erupting as metal scraped against the reinforced shell. The creature's mask fractured under the barrage, jagged cracks splitting across its glowing, monstrous face. Blue light leaked from the fissures in the helm, and then its full form loomed. The entity stepped forward, radiating dark, oppressive mana. Quay, Knight rank. The title burned into Suho's mind as if the system itself was warning him. A knight rank. His other version loomed larger with every heartbeat, its cold blade gleaming under the lightning bursts crackling across the field. He charged without hesitation, blades flashing. The knight met him with crushing strength, steel clashing against steel in a storm of power and precision. The air cracked as Suho pushed forward, ducking beneath a wild swing and responding with a sweeping arc of his own sword. The battlefield exploded with kinetic energy. But even amidst the chaos, something tugged at the edges of his consciousness, more than just the enemy's might. The summoned shadows weren't ordinary. To be able to summon a shadow soldier like that, with nothing present to draw from? Suho's eyes widened in realization. At level 32, this being could already store shadows. The implications rattled him. The more he fought, the more it became apparent. This opponent, this shadow-bound warrior, was no anomaly. He was a mirror of something else. Memories surged within Suho's mind, foreign, yet unmistakably his. Echoes of another life, another world. They weren't visions from this trial. They were lived moments. He remembered Baru, so unlike this world's version. Essel, gray, even Amit, different, familiar, and that version of him. He had faced the trials with purpose, not chaos. Suho's body twisted mid-strike, muscles coiling with explosive power as he brought his blade down in a ruthless arc. The air split under the force, a razor edge of momentum cutting toward his foe. From the darkness ahead, a monstrous figure emerged, eyes burning with primal malice, jaws parting to reveal a grin full of jagged menace. Blue energy surged violently around its form, the ground trembling under its presence. The creature's gaze locked onto him, its expression shifting into a wicked smile, as if relishing the challenge. Every flicker of its aura promised a battle that would push him beyond the edge. Blood streaked across Suho's trembling hand as he struggled against the crushing force bearing down on him. His eyes burned with a mixture of pain and frustration, the question clawing its way from his throat. Why was it always like this? Why did every challenge thrown his way feel impossibly heavy, tailored to break him? The thought seared through his mind. He was always pushed, always forced to fight past his breaking point. His grip tightened despite the agony, defiance shining in his gaze as he refused to yield, even when his body screamed for release. Not a single trial in this place had been simple. Each one was merciless. He had fallen here hundreds of times, each death brought by enemies so monstrously strong they defied reason. The other version of Suho tightened his grip on his blade. With a powerful swing, he strikes, the clash igniting a violent flare of light and force. His expression was cold, focused, each movement calculated, every strike driven by the determination to carve a path forward despite the impossible odds. A thunderous crash erupted as his blade collided with the opponent, the sheer force sending arcs of light and shadow rippling outward. Sparks and energy flared between them, illuminating the darkness in a violent burst. Without hesitation, Suho stopped the strike, shadows wrapped around his gauntlets, his eyes narrowed. His movements blurred, every strike cutting through the chaos, forcing his foe back step by step. The ground beneath them cracked from the pressure, each impact echoing like a war drum in the still air. What Suho had learned after countless deaths and sinking into the depths of despair was etched into his very being. His gaze was sharp, unyielding, as lightning-like energy coursed around him. His opponent's eyes widened in disbelief. Through all the pain and futility, one truth became clear. Doing nothing, standing idle, would change nothing. With that resolve burning within him, his fist clashed fiercely against his opponent's weapon, the impact exploding with raw force, neither side giving an inch. A surge of power exploded between the two combatants, blades and fists colliding in a violent storm of light and steel. The force of impact split the air, sending shockwaves spiraling outward. In that instant, his thoughts cut sharply through the chaos. The problem wasn't whether the system had errors or not. With another clash, the other Suho drove his strike forward, eyes locked. The truth was harsher. The way I used the system was wrong to begin with. The system was not his master. It was not the hand that raised him. His gaze, sharp and unwavering, locked onto his opponent as realization crystallized within him. I should be the one making use of it. The ground shattered beneath his next step, dust and debris spiraling upward as his body coiled with unstoppable momentum. Rising from the broken stone, Suho's silhouette darkened with raw determination. Energy rippled through his limbs as if the very shadows bent to his will. No longer would he follow the path the system had prepared. His destiny would not be dictated by a program. His eyes burned with purpose as he drove forward. Because my future will change depending on my decisions. And with that thought, he unleashed a crushing blow, the force erupting into a blinding explosion that swallowed the space between him and his foe. His other version stood at the center of the cracked arena floor, his sword drawn, its crimson edge faintly glowing as the energy around him surged. Lightning-like power crawled across the ground in jagged lines, the force of his aura distorting the air. Other side, Suho's eyes narrowed in focus as he shifted his stance, muscles coiled like a predator ready to pounce. In an instant, he lunged forward, his figure becoming a blur. The ground shattered beneath his feet, and in the same motion, he was airborne, spinning with devastating precision. His descent came like a thunderbolt, his fist carving through the air before slamming down with explosive force. The impact rippled outward, tearing the earth as light and debris erupted skyward. The sheer shockwave threw stone and dust in every direction, but Suho didn't stop. He roared, his voice mixing with the thunder of the blow, as blue energy burned along his body like a living flame. The ground continued to fracture under his relentless assault, each strike pushing deeper, faster, harder. When the last echo of impact faded, the air was thick with dust and the acrid scent of scorched stone. Suho emerged from the haze, his breathing ragged, sweat and blood mixing on his battered frame. His steps were unsteady, yet his gaze burned with unyielding resolve. Even in exhaustion, he was ready to strike again. Then a sudden notification echoes. Quest: please defeat the being behind the door with the remaining lives you have been given. Being behind the door, 1 out of 1. The player has cleared the advancement quest. You have obtained the title, the one who overcame adversity. This title is given to one who has spectacularly overcome adversities. The more stamina you lose, the more your stats will increase, granting you 2% of your stats for every 1% of stamina lost. Amid the settling dust, his battered form trembles, breath ragged, yet his steps are steady as he rises from the fractured ground. It's finally over, he murmurs, the weight of countless battles pressing down on his shoulders. Analyzing your movements and determining a suitable class, you have chosen to fight instead of bowing down to opponents far stronger than you. Your mind did not break despite having died hundreds of times. You have accomplished physical and mental growth even in a situation where you cannot grow stronger. Your creativity will always lead to a positive solution in moments of crisis, and your unwavering determination will inspire those around you, ensuring that everyone reaches the goal together. You may choose between 3 classes. On the battlefield, Suho stood calm and resolved. 3 orbs of light glinting in front of Suho. 3 classes. His voice is low, but his eyes narrow with sharp curiosity. The first class is Shadow's Heir. If you choose the aforementioned class, the system will become a guide for you to become the Shadow's Heir. The second class is Soul Striker. Reading from the past data, you have been given the choice of the hidden class, Soul Striker. Your previous stats will not be restored, and the Shadow skill will disappear. The third class, shrouded entirely in question marks, its true nature hidden from sight. The system's voice resonated in his mind, explaining that this was the recommended class for his unique traits, shaped by all he had endured during the advancement quest. Yet there was a cost. His shadow skill would vanish. 3 paths unfolded before him. The first, a stagnant road where nothing changed. The second, a journey retracing the path of the past. And the third, the most daunting, losing everything to embrace something entirely new. His voice dripped with disbelief as his eyes narrowed, the glow of power reflecting off their cold edges. Are you kidding me? He thought back to the countless moments he had died here. Deaths swift and merciful only in their lack of pain, but merciless in their frequency. Each one had been a step in this relentless trial. And now, standing at the end of it all, the truth struck harder than any blade. After enduring such absurd, crushing difficulty, there was only one reward waiting for him. Light erupted around him, swallowing all the storm of blinding brilliance. His gaze was unyielding, voice steady as he declared, "I'll take them all." The swirling radiance intensified, wrapping his silhouette in raw, unrestrained power. Sparks danced and fractured the air, the overwhelming energy consuming the battlefield. A deafening burst split the silence, and with it came the final proclamation. You have completed your advancement. Your classes. In the shadow dungeon, a somber tension filled the air as the shadows stirred. From the darkness, Baru's voice trembled with worry, calling out to the one they had been waiting for. Beside Essel knelt by the Baru, her face etched with unease as she tried to reassure herself. It had been 3 long weeks, and still, there was no word, no sign, nothing but silence. Baru's voice echoes. Crocodile young monarch will be fine, won't he? Amit's heavy voice broke through, admitting the thought they had all tried to ignore. Perhaps something had indeed happened to him. Even as he spoke, an unsettling cry echoed in the distance, snapping their attention toward the source. Then, like a wave crashing upon the shore, a familiar energy swept through the place. A portal swirled open, light spilling across the cracked ground. Footsteps emerged from the haze. His voice, calm yet commanding, cut through the air, asking if they had been well. "Long time no see," he said, and in that moment, all doubt faded. Baru's eyes went wide, Essel's voice caught in her throat, and the shadows trembled in awe. "King!" they cried out, their relief bursting into the open. "Young monarch!" Their shouts echoed through the devastated city streets as the portal's glow faded behind him. Far away, the calm skyline stood in stark contrast to the turmoil below. Inside a towering building, a tense meeting was underway. A man leaned forward, his voice grave as he asked the question that lingered heavily in the room. Was there still no news about Suho? The response came with regret. The Hunter Association had scoured every lead, yet they hadn't found a single trace, not even someone who looked remotely like him. The tense air in the Hunter Association's headquarters was thick with uncertainty. Chairman Wu spoke gravely, noting how the atmosphere had worsened. Rumors were spreading that Suho had killed Li Min-sung. Jin-Woo, his voice firm with conviction, denied the accusation outright, insisting there was no way Suho would take a life. He reasoned that Suho's situation was likely connected to the mysterious iterum that had been mentioned before. Jin-Woo then spoke with determination, his tone tinged with regret. In the previous world, he had been powerless to help Jin-Woo, who had fought alone. This time, he vowed, he would not allow Suho to face his battles in solitude. Suddenly, the sharp vibration of a phone cut through the room, its urgent red warning flashing on the screen. "Give me a second," Chairman Wu muttered. As he glanced at the incoming alert, his expression darkened. How many times has this happened? The Hunter Association should have been ready for this. Yet the news was clear. Another dungeon break had occurred. A monstrous roar echoed in his thoughts as a hulking, reptilian beast with glowing red eyes emerged into the city. The streets erupted into chaos. Armored hunters clashed with the advancing creatures, their weapons flashing as they tried to stem the tide. A scream rang out as one of the beasts lunged at a fleeing hunter. "Damn it!" shouted a hunter, flames igniting in his hand while others drew their blades. Why did a large dungeon break have to occur right in the middle of the city? High above the chaotic streets, The apostle sat in the shadows, idly watching the carnage unfold. His expression was one of boredom, as if the roars of monsters and the screams of civilians were nothing more than background noise. He muttered to himself, "This is so boring." In his mind, a cold calculation played out. To rise into the core ranks of the Hunter Association, he needed results, achievements that would turn heads. And the greater the damage, the greater the attention. That was the cruel lesson he had learned before. The more catastrophic the event, the bigger the spotlight. His eyes narrowed, a sharp gleam in them as he considered the nature of people. Humans, he thought, were peculiar creatures, selectively forgetful and easily swayed by spectacle. They only remembered the names of the celebrated heroes, the ones who stood in the limelight. Those who arrived first and died in anonymity were quickly forgotten. Down below, the battle raged. Hunters clashed with a hulking beast, its crimson eyes glowing with malice. One struck from above, blade flashing, but the creature's massive frame twisted in defiance. A call rang out from a B-rank hunter, Huang Jae-hyung, rallying civilians to safety. Relief filled their faces at the sight of him, but the apostle in the shadows frowned. "B-rank, that's no good," he murmured. His plan required the stage to be his alone. Without hesitation, he began to weave his own power, light gathering in his hands as his gaze locked on the unfolding chaos. The monster lunged, the B-rank hunter rushing forward to meet it. But before their clash could decide the battle, a blinding force surged between them. The interloper making his move, determined to seize the spotlight for himself. The monstrous clash in the streets had already left the B-rank hunter battered, his armor fractured as he struggled to regain his footing among the rubble. But then, a sudden surge of dread prickled his senses. The monster's magic power spiked violently, its presence swelling with newfound ferocity. His eyes widened in alarm just as the towering beast lunged forward with a forceful roar. Without warning, multiple creatures moved in unison, their hulking bodies colliding with an earth-shaking impact. The street quaked beneath their crushing blows, the cacophony echoing through the chaos. From a short distance away, other hunters stared in stunned silence. Their eyes dropped to the blood splattered across the cracked pavement, a grim trail leading straight to the grotesque silhouette of a monster crouched low, fresh prey dangling from its jagged maw. Its glowing eyes gleamed with savage hunger as it rose from the carnage. One hunter clenched his jaw. Damn it! Memories flashed in his mind. How he'd stumbled into a windfall that allowed him to heal his injured leg. How he'd proudly bought a new weapon, believing he could return to the field and earn a living again. But here, facing the sheer brutality of the battlefield, that hope felt paper-thin. He gripped his blade tighter, admitting the bitter truth to himself. For a D-rank hunter like him, standing against such beasts to save others wasn't bravery, it was recklessness. Still, the shadow of death closing in left little room for retreat. The monstrous figures loomed over him, ready to strike. Then, a sudden gale of movement swept past. Someone else was already there. A blur of black sliced through the air, the newcomer's strike tearing into a monster with lethal precision. The D-rank hunter flinched back, startled by the overwhelming presence beside him, his breath catching in a mix of awe and disbelief as the tide of battle shifted in an instant. The monster's maw split open in a deafening roar, but the sound was swallowed by the crackling tide of violet energy that ripped through the battlefield. Blades of shadow tore across its flesh, each strike carrying an unearthly precision, falling the creature as if it were nothing more than paper before a raging flame. In the wake of the devastation, a lone figure stood tall, his back lit by the swirling remnants of magic. A faint, ghostly mist curled from his frame as his head tilted slightly, the faint glint of a mask catching the fractured light. Recognition flashed in the eyes of a battered hunter nearby. That mask, the same one from before. Memories resurfaced unbidden, rumors of a lone raid, impossible odds overcome, a figure walking out without a scratch. It was him, the young man who had silenced a dungeon single-handedly. The whispers of the crowd meant nothing to the masked hunter. His eyes were locked on the hulking corpse at his feet. He had heard the tales, too, that this prey would have been a challenge for most, but his hands told him otherwise. This was barely a warm-up. Now was the perfect moment to push further, to test the full scope of the power his advancement had granted him. Slowly, his hand rose, palm downward, shadow leaking from his fingertips like liquid night. His voice cut through the air, deep and commanding. Arise! The dead beast shuddered violently. From the pool of its own blood, black vapors began to writhe and twist, congealing into a grotesque silhouette. Darkness bloomed outward, enveloping the space in a suffocating sphere of magic. An onlooker staggered backward, his eyes wide. What the? The shadows split open like an obsidian tide wrapping the hunters and their weapons, revealing armored forms that stepped forth from the void. Steel gleamed under the moonlight, but it was unlike any earthly alloy. Pitch black, pulsing faintly with the heartbeat of their mana. What is that? Someone gasped, voice trembling. Baru turned its gaze upward, its voice filled with astonishment. Young monarch. That's, it exclaimed, sensing something extraordinary. Suho stood calmly, dark energy curling around him. The little creature's surprise deepened. Are you able to use shadow transformation for others now too? His answer was firm, his tone steady. This skill isn't shadow transformation. That's actually categorized as an item. In Hunter's hand, a black, jagged weapon shimmered into existence. The Shadow Naga Warrior Scimitar, a creation of shadow with a deadly edge. More weapons materialized, each described in a cascade of glowing text. The Shadow Naga Warrior Bracelet, enhancing defense and stamina, and the Shadow Naga Warrior Sword, a rare-grade weapon capable of piercing through enemy defenses. From the sidelines, Baru was in awe. He used the Shadow Soldiers to create items? Not even the Shadow Monarch had used such an ability before. This is what it's like after the young monarch advanced, the creature whispered in amazement. And Suho, now unmasked, stepped forward with a quiet command in his voice. If you can still fight, he asked the armored hunter beside him, will you lend me your strength? Before an answer could come, a voice echoed from the above. You finally appeared. The apostle emerged, his gaze fixed on Suho with unsettling intensity. That ability is new, he remarked. You've become completely different from before. His eyes gleamed gold as his lips curled into a knowing smile. Sung Suho. Suho moved with an unshakable calm, his presence radiating quiet dominance as the monsters attacked. Suho's expression remained resolute as his status window revealed the truth. His growth had surged beyond measure. Status window. Name, Sung Suho. Level, 42. Class, Irregular, White Shadow. Fatigue, 0. Title, The One Who Overcame Adversity. HP, 8,525/8,525. MP, 820/820. Strength, 130. Stamina, 62. Agility, 51. Intelligence, 61. Sense, 51. Remaining points, 0. Passive skills, endurance level. 4. Martial arts level. 2. Strength increase, level. 1. Active skills, ruler's authority level. 2. Skill, shadow creation level. 1. Class exclusive skill. No mana required. Transform a shadow into an item based on the imagination of the player. Items that can be created, shadow item. Shadows used for creation cannot revert to becoming soldiers again. Far away, in the heart of India, the grand halls of the Azura Guild stood in tense silence. That stillness shattered as a violent crash ripped through the entrance, dust and debris scattering across the floor. Amid the chaos lay a battered man, blood trailing from his lips as he struggled to speak. Suho. His voice trembled with regret. I'm sorry for repaying your kindness in this manner. Heavy footsteps approached, each step radiating a predatory weight. A towering figure loomed, his presence oppressive. You're saying that the person who killed my guys is in Korea, huh? His tone was cold, dangerous. Without hesitation, he turned toward the light streaming from the shattered doorway. We're going to Korea, he declared. I will never forgive anyone for touching what's mine. Elsewhere, the sky above stretched endlessly, clouds drifting lazily across a sunlit expanse. But beneath that calm horizon, storms of vengeance were already moving into place. High above the clouds, the sky swirled violently, a vortex of light tearing open the heavens. Winds howled as the spiraling rift widened, scattering rays of brilliance across the stormy expanse. From its heart descended a lone figure, her hair flowing like liquid moonlight, cutting through the tempest without fear. Step by step, she closed the space between them, each movement slow, deliberate, and charged with tension. The storm grew brighter, the world itself trembling as massive, ethereal shapes began to manifest in the haze. Colossal, luminous beings loomed into existence, their sheer presence distorting the very air. And there, in the midst of that blinding radiance, the two figures stood, on the edge of an encounter that would shatter the stillness of the world. Chapter end here. For more, like, share, and subscribe.